Fabulous people, welcome to the channel for all the babes who create their own life trends. For those of you who are new to my channel, hi, my name is Anastasia and I'm an American expat who moved to Rome over a decade ago. I can't believe it's been that long, and founded Fabulous Vita travel agency here in Italy. Lately, we've been creating a lot of customized itineraries for travelers who are going to Rome for the first time, and Italy in general. I realized that Rome for first-time visitors most likely will be overwhelming. So in this Rome travel guide, I decided to share with you some of the top Rome travel tips for first-time visitors. Now, before we begin, please remember to smack that like button. And if you're new to my channel and my vibe and the vibe of this channel resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe. All right, fabulous people, let's start planning. All right, fabulous people, I want to begin this Rome travel guide with a big and a bit of an unfortunate announcement when it comes to transportation in Rome that will definitely affect your Rome travel. If you plan on traveling to Rome in 2024 and beyond, you will be happy to know that Rome is going to look like one big construction site. In 2 years, there will be a huge Rome's Jubilee celebrations with over 30 million Catholic pilgrims visiting the Vatican and Rome. Rome is also hoping to win the International Expo and to become the city for international events. So they decided to fix the city's transport system, which, as you know from my videos, isn't the best. And it all begins with the most central piazza, Piazza Venezia, where they are building a new subway hub. Now we have to remember that anytime you dig a hole in Rome, you are expected to find tons of priceless relics. Therefore, the construction is expected to last for at least 10 years, potentially even longer. On top of that, there are currently about 180 road construction sites happening around the city. So regardless if this is your first time visit to Rome or you are an experienced traveler, if you need to get somewhere by car, be it a tour or a restaurant in Rome, I recommend adding an extra 30 minutes just in case. Now let's talk about when to visit Rome. Of course, it will depend on a lot of different factors like your budget, activities you'd like to do, seasonal food you'd like to try, etc. But in my personal opinion, some of the absolute best months to visit Rome are April, May, September and October. Now, if you'd like to see Rome being stunningly decorated for Christmas and attend some Christmas markets in Rome, of course, December is a great month to visit. And of course, I have tons of videos on Rome in December for you, including some of the top Rome Christmas markets, what to do in Rome for Christmas, etc., etc. So I will make sure to leave them for you in the description down below. And surprisingly, guys, February is an excellent month to travel to Rome, as the weather in February most of the day is a perfection. And of course, there are almost no crowds, therefore the prices will be lower for pretty much everything: travel, accommodation, restaurants, etc. And honestly, guys, if you have some flexibility in your schedule, February is the month to travel to Rome. And of course, I do have a guide on February that I will leave for you also in the description down below. Now, 2 months that I recommend to avoid at all costs are August and July, or July and August. Those months are the worst, guys. And let me just tell you, if you plan on traveling to Rome in July or August, just be prepared for some brutal temperatures and humidity. Guys, please try to avoid those months at all costs. But if you still need to come to Rome in August, just make sure to avoid the middle of August. That is really the worst time to travel to Italy in an entire year. Select either the first week of August or the last week of August, but avoid the middle of August at all costs. All right, now let's talk about transportation from the airport to Rome. There are some very important things that I need to make sure that I am covering. Number one, please keep in mind that in Rome you have two airports: Fiumicino Airport, which is an international airport, and most likely that is the airport you will be arriving to, and Ciampino Airport, which if you, let's say, visit first Spain or Greece, most likely that will be the airport you will be traveling to and arriving to Rome. And Ciampino is usually an airport for low cost or budget airlines like Ryanair. So it just depends where you will be traveling from to get to Rome. All right, so once you get to the airport, once you arrive, be it Fiumicino or Ciampino, if you decide to take a taxi, please keep in mind that there is already a set rate for you to pay from the airport, no matter if it's Ciampino or Fiumicino, to the center of Rome. And the reason why I'm mentioning this, guys, is because unfortunately a lot of times Roman taxi drivers take advantage of tourists and they give them some ridiculous price for taking them from either of the airports to the city center. And a lot of times the reason that they give to the tourists is that, oh, your hotel or your Airbnb was so much further and that's why I'm charging you extra. No, absolutely not. If you're traveling from either of the airports to the city center, it is a fixed rate. So just make sure you are aware of that. And you can find an updated price list, guys, at the taxi station. So before you get in a cab, just make sure that you check that price so you know exactly how much you need to pay. Also, please keep in mind that taxi drivers in Rome now do accept credit cards, so you don't have to carry cash with you. You can pay with a credit card once you arrive to your destination. Finally, once you are in Rome, please make sure that you download, or of course ahead of time, please make sure that you download a free Now app. It's a taxi app that we use here in Rome a lot. I do not recommend for you getting a cab at the taxi stand because, again, unfortunately, taxi drivers a lot of times will charge you extra just because you're a tourist. I know it sounds insane, but it happens all the time. So I just want to make sure that you avoid this kind of unfortunate overcharging. Now you might say, Anastasia, so then I'll just take an Uber. Guys, please remember, again, I mentioned that in a lot of my previous videos, that we only have Uber Black in Rome. And that means that your Uber rides are gonna cost you at least 3 times more than a taxi ride. So needless to say, unless it's an emergency, I wouldn't be using Uber in Rome. All right, now moving on to the next subject, let's talk about attractions in Rome. If you're doing Rome on a budget, there is one important travel tip you should definitely know when you start planning a trip to Rome. Rome state-owned galleries, museums, and archaeological sites are free on the first Sunday of each month. Just please keep in mind that this is also the busiest day to visit these attractions, so I recommend to show up early. And on the contrary, if you want to explore Rome without huge crowds and long lines, I would avoid this day at all cost. Now guys, a lot of you always ask me for recommendations for the best tours on top Roman sites like Colosseum, Vatican Museums, Borghese Gallery, so I made sure to leave you links to some of my absolute favorite tours in the description down below. All right guys, and now let's talk about specifically what to do in Rome. If this is your first time in Rome, Italy, of course visiting all the main Roman attractions like Vatican Museums, Colosseum, Pantheon, etc. is a must. Just please make sure to book those sites way in advance or you will be extremely disappointed when you arrive here. Please also don't forget that Rome is considered an open-air museum, so I strongly recommend visiting free sites like Spanish Steps, Trevi Fountain, Piazza Navona, Piazza del Popolo, Villa Borghese, etc. Now, of course, depending on how much time you plan on staying in Rome, as well as days of the week, I strongly recommend squeezing in one or two hidden gems of Rome like Domus Aurea or Palazzo Colonna. Trust me guys, you will not regret it. And of course, I have the entire series on hidden gems of Rome that I will leave for you in the description down below. And of course, guys, I know that planning a trip to Rome or Italy in general can get a bit overwhelming, especially if this is your first time traveling to Italy and trying to figure out everything from accommodations and the best areas to stay in, to transportation from, let's say, how to get from Rome to Florence or from Florence to Venice, and trying to figure out how many days to stay in each place, and of course trying to avoid all the tourist traps, because I always say you cannot afford to have a bad meal in Italy. I know it guys, it can get a bit overwhelming. So if this is your first time in Italy and you want specific recommendations on transportation, accommodation, sites, restaurants, then I welcome you to book a consultation call with me or one of my travel agency specialists, and together we will make sure that you have the most perfect trip planned. And of course, I will make sure to leave a link to the consultation calls in the description down below. All right, guys, now moving on to the next tip. If you're visiting Rome for the first time, you're going to quickly find out that Wi-Fi in Rome is extremely unreliable, and it doesn't really matter where you are, be it a hotel, Airbnb, a restaurant, guys. It's just how it is in Rome. So what I always recommend is to get a local SIM card. And I know, guys, I know you're going to ask me, Anastasia, which SIM card do you recommend? And you know, I love Iliad. I've been using Iliad for years because it is extremely reliable, extremely cheap. For about $10, you're going to get 150 gigabytes. And on top of that, unlimited calls to the US, Canada, all over Europe. In my opinion, it is totally worth it. Now let's talk about one of the main reasons you plan to travel to Italy: Italian food. If you watched my videos on things to know before you travel to Rome or how to plan your first trip to Italy, you know that every region in Italy has its own traditional food. And in Rome, it's all about pasta carbonara, amatriciana, and cacio e pepe. Now, when it comes to Roman street food, you cannot leave Rome without trying supli, porchetta, artichokes, when in season, trapezzino, etc. And if you're wondering where to eat in Rome or where you can find traditional Roman dishes, the area with the most concentrated Roman trattorias is, of course, Trastevere. Of course, in Trastevere, you will also find, unfortunately, a lot of tourist traps with the most disgusting food, because they think, oh, tourists, they don't know any better. And I'm not going to call any restaurant out in particular, but a lot of times those restaurants also have a lot of reviews. So guys, just be careful, do a lot of research. And if you want to take the headache out of the planning process and to make sure that you're truly enjoying some authentic traditional Roman dishes and drinks, then I recommend booking one of the food tours. There are tons of food tours on Airbnb Experiences or Viator. And of course, I will make sure to leave you links to my food tours. I have a day and evening food tour in Trastevere. And this way you are guaranteed to experience some authentic, delicious, traditional Roman dishes and drinks. Now, the next thing for us to discuss in this Rome guide is where to stay in Rome. And if this is going to be your first time traveling to Rome, you will see that city center, or centro storico, as we say in Italian, is actually very compact. It's very concentrated with all the Roman sites, so you won't have to take public transportation or taxi to get from one site to another. But if you want to be as central as possible, so it will literally take you just a few minutes to get to the main sites, then I recommend staying in areas like Pantheon, Piazza Navona, and Spanish Steps. Now, if you're a budget traveler, you can still find nice accommodations just a little bit outside of the historic center. Areas like Garbatella, Testaccio, Cipro, they all offer really good accommodations. Just make sure, guys, that you are staying within walking distance to the metro station, so it is very easy for you just to hop on a metro and then go see all the sites in Rome. Now, another Rome travel tip that I have for you when it comes to accommodations in Rome is make sure, guys, to book your accommodations as early as possible. So as soon as you know the dates for your trip, make sure and book it, because the closer you will get to your departure date, the more expensive accommodations will get in Rome. That is guaranteed. And just be prepared, guys, to pay premium if you plan on traveling to Rome in the most popular months, which are September and October, which I know is a big surprise to most of you, but I talk about it in all of my videos. September and October are two most popular months to visit Rome. So if you plan on traveling to Rome during those months, be prepared, guys, just be prepared. If this is your first time in Rome or Italy in general, you will learn very quickly that restaurant operating hours in Rome are very different from restaurant operating hours in, let's say, US or Canada. Here in Rome, most restaurants will be open for lunch from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. and then they close until 7 p.m. So most restaurants here, unless they're tourist traps, will not be operating non-stop. So just make sure to keep that in mind when you start planning your trip between enjoying all the sights and at the same time enjoying Italian food. Now, when it comes to dinner, most of the restaurants will be open between 7 p.m. and 11:30 p.m., 12 a.m. Oh yeah, Italians love to eat late, and it is actually quite interesting to see if you come to the restaurant around 7:30 p.m. and it's going to be completely empty, and then 8 p.m., 8:30 p.m. on the dot is going to fill up with all the Italians. And it is actually not that uncommon in Italy to come to the restaurant even at 10 p.m., 10:30 p.m. and have full dinner. It is quite normal here. And that is a very important thing for you guys to know for one particular reason. If you forgot to make a reservation to a restaurant, to a particular restaurant, and you really want to eat there, I recommend for you to show up at that restaurant as early as possible before all the Italians get there. This way you are more likely to actually get a table. But guys, please, I beg you, make sure that you are making reservations way in advance for all the restaurants or trattorias or osterias or anywhere where you want to enjoy food in Rome, because I promise to you, during the busy season, which is most of the time, you are not going to be able to book a few days in advance. You have to make all the restaurant reservations in advance here in Rome. All the Italians do that. Italians are so good on making reservations in advance, and to some really good and popular restaurants, you need to make a reservation at least a month in advance. I know it sounds crazy, but guys, that is the name of the game. You are coming to one of the most popular places in the world. So just make sure that everything is booked in advance, including restaurants and of course sites, accommodations, tours, all the activities. Everything is booked. So when you come to Rome, you are not disappointed. All right. The next tip that I want to give you, or the next subject that I want to talk to you about, is a Roma Pass or Omnia card, because a lot of you ask me, Anastasia, is it worth it? And in my personal opinion, it is not worth it. And the reason why I'm saying this is because none of them are all inclusive. They don't include guided tours, and unless you plan on using hop off, hop on, hop off bus, which in my opinion is one of the worst ways to explore Rome, because remember, I told you earlier, Rome is very compact. Everything is within the walking distance. So in my opinion, hop on, hop off bus or hop off, hop on is the worst way to explore Rome. And yes, public transportation is also included in it, but unless you plan on using public transportation tons, which again, I told you, there is no reason for you to do this here in Rome, guys, in my opinion, is just a waste of money. And at the end, let me mention some important things to know for Rome that maybe you already know, but nevertheless, let me mention them because I'm pretty sure you will learn something new here as well. Number one, water fountains, or nazones as locals call them. Guys, make sure to take advantage of water in Rome. It is clean, it is fresh, and it is available on every corner. So there is no reason for you guys buying bottles of water. Again, a waste of money. Make sure to take advantage of the delicious water we have all over Rome. Make sure that you are wearing comfortable, previously worn shoes, or you will regret it quickly. The amount of walking you will be doing in Rome is probably beyond what you imagine. Just be prepared for it in the best way possible. If you're wondering what to wear in Rome or about Italian dress code in general, please remember that if you plan on visiting Roman churches, you will need to have your shoulders covered, and your dresses, skirts, or shorts should be at or below the knee. Also, please keep in mind that Italians take pride in the way they look and present themselves to the world. So I recommend putting some extra effort into planning your wardrobe for Italy. And if you're wondering what to pack for Italy, then I recommend to watch my videos on what to wear in fall in Italy, what to wear in winter in Italy, etc., broken down by months. And again, I will leave all of that information for you in the description down below. Finally, guys, I cannot end this video without mentioning to be extra careful with your belongings, with your purses, with your documents, not to fall victim to numerous scams that are unfortunately located throughout Rome, and especially in public transportation. I talk about all of that in so many of my videos. And again, of course, if I start going into specific details, this video is probably would be 40 minutes at least, maybe even an hour. So that's why a lot of times I refer you to my other videos that go into the specifics on each subject. So if you want to learn more about pickpocketing in Rome and different scams, then make sure to check out my video, How Safe is Rome in 2023? And of course, it will carry throughout 2024 because I don't think much is going to change between 2023 and 2024. All right, fabulous. Thank you so much for watching this Rome travel video for first timers. I truly hope that you found these Rome tips useful and beneficial. And if you still have any questions for me, then make sure to leave them in the comments down below, and I promise I will respond. Now, before you go, please remember to smack that like button. And if you're new to my channel and my vibe and the vibe of this channel resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe. And I truly hope to see you all in my next video.